Hello, I'm Claire Poole and welcome to the Climate of Sport podcast, the show in which you get the inside track on all things sport and sustainability globally. Join me every week where I'll be chatting to a special guest about news, opinion and insights on how sport is moving to a more environmentally friendly future or taking action on climate change. Hi everyone and welcome to the Climate of Sport podcast with me, Claire Poole. I'm delighted today to be joined by three guests in the world of athletics to talk about all different perspectives of what's happening in the world of sustainability. So let me introduce you today to Bob Ramsak at World Athletics, Steinar Hoen, Meeting Director of the Oslo Bislett Games, which is a Diamond League event, and Arttu Salonen, Athlete Coordinator and Sustainability Lead at the Paavo Nurmi Games in Finland, which is a World Athletics Continental Tour Gold event. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Lovely to have you all with us. So first of all, what I want to do is just to set the scene a little bit, hear from you all about your own personal journey into these incredible roles for these organisations. And then we're going to hear a little bit about what the organisations are doing specifically in regard to sustainability. So Bob, why don't I come to you first?
Yeah, I think it's a journey like several of my other counterparts I've found in other sports. There's no really one kind of road to this position. We've all taken very unique and interesting experiences, I think, into this position. I'm the head of sustainability at World Athletics. It's a position that began in April of 2021. That came out of my involvement in elite level track and field, as they say in the US. For more than 20 years, primarily as a journalist, photographer, working for a variety of publications, agencies, newspapers, websites, and much of that time as a reporter and editor with the IAAF, which currently is World Athletics. But before that, I was living in the States. I grew up in the States, but I'm from Yugoslavia, or Slovenia, I should say originally. Growing up in the States, with a school in the States, I worked with several community development organizations around economic development, around environmental justice, around economic justice. So that's always been one of my really strong passions. A lot of that was in rural parts of southeastern Ohio, which, if for those of you not familiar, that's the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in the eastern U.S. So it's an area with many, many challenges where poverty levels are particularly high. And those projects really opened my eyes, I think, to both the challenges and possibilities of grassroots advocacy in a variety of different issues. At the same time, I was working as a freelance reporter for many years, and I was always being pulled back to athletics. It's the only sport I've ever really followed. Since I was a kid, I was always just kind of attracted to those bare essentials, who can run the fastest, who can throw the farthest, who could jump the highest. And I decided to become a full-time athletics journalist in around 2000, moved back to Europe in 2004, and eventually landed here at World Athletics.
Nice. Wonderful to hear a little bit about your origins story as well and where the passions come from. Arttu, let me come to you and hear about you. Obviously, your role at the Games is a really interesting and exciting one. What brought you into that role?
So I got into athletics through my father, he did track when he was younger, and he's worked in different positions in mass participation events and Paavo Nurmi Games as well. I did track when I was younger, specifically long jump and sprints. Then I had a few difficult injuries in my teens, and it was pretty hard to come back from those. So I think I started working in our mass participation events in around 2007. So I was quite young back then. Did that for a few years, customer service, event management, project development kind of things. And then in 2013, I started at Paavo Nurmi Games. So initially, I was responsible for coordinating athletes, so the athletes liaison part. And then eventually in 2021, I became the sustainability lead as well for our company. So that's pretty much my track to where I'm at right now.
Thank you, Arttu. That's awesome to hear as well. And I want to hear now from Steiner in terms of your journey into this position at the Oslo Bislett Games.
Yeah, hello, and thank you for having me. So I'm Steinar Hoen. I started my career, first of all, in the United States, where I studied at the Southern Methodist University in Dallas. So I had a scholarship there, and I did the high jump and bachelor business administration. Then after 93, 94, I did quite well on the track. So I become a professional athlete, competed in the European World Championships, Olympic Games a few times, and I got to win the European Championships in 1994. Then when I was 29 in 2000, I stopped my career. It was quite early actually, but I felt I couldn't jump any higher, and high jump is all about jumping high. So I went back to my original plan, which were to work in the financial industry. So I worked in an investment bank from 2000 to 2010. Then I got the offer from the former meet director of the Bislett Games, Mr. Svein Arne Hansen. He was formerly also the president of the European Athletics Federation. So he wanted me to take over. And I did that. So I became the meeting director of the Bislett Games in 2010, and are still having that job today. When it comes to the sustainability part, Bislett Games were formerly known as the ExxonMobil Bislett Games. So we had the biggest oil company in the world as our main sponsor for 29 years. So when I took over in 2010, we were financially sound. We had a big oil company in the back, and Norway is a big oil producer, so it's quite natural. But in 2016, after I had this job for 6 years, then ExxonMobil, they decided to pull out of Norway. They sold all their gasoline station, and they also sold all the activity in the North Sea. This was a time where ExxonMobil's name started to be a problem for us. Already from 2013-14, I felt the impact of the dilemma between fossil fuels and climate warming. My own journey started when I watched the movie of Al Gore back in 2003. I started to wake up slowly. Took some time, but when we came to the time when Exxon pulled out, I saw this as an opportunity. So it meant the fall of 2016, we took a big change, which we call our green shift. We took a 180-degree shift from being known as the biggest fossil fuel meet in the world to become the most sustainable international track and field meeting. And that was the start of the journey, which has become really successful. And we're still working on that. We can talk about that later.
Incredible already to hear all of your journeys, and dying to get into that journey as well with you, Steiner, about going from oil and gas to the most sustainable. I think that's going to be fascinating for people. The reason I ask everyone who comes on this podcast about their sort of journey with this is, as Bob mentioned at the start, everyone's journey into the nexus of sort of sport and sustainability is so different compared to a lot of other industries, that I always think it's interesting to hear from people on that, because we're contacted constantly by young people, graduates trying to get into this space, and there isn't always naturally, one path or one journey. So I always think it's interesting to hear from you all in these positions of leadership within the industry about how you got there, just to underline the fact that there isn't usually a straight path to this stuff. It's usually via a lot of other stops in the way. So wonderful to hear from you all on that. And now I guess, let's start to hear a little bit about at an organisational level what you're doing around this, and the journey and the focus areas when we look at all of your individual events and organisations, and how sustainability has become more and more of a focus for you all. So Bob, I guess it makes sense to talk to you first from the World Athletics perspective, and then we can sort of filter down to the event. So why don't you kick us off with just a top line view of sort of the efforts that World Athletics are focusing on right now, commitments, and the way you're trying to engender change from your position.
World Athletics is the international governing body for track and field, road running, race walking. We're made up of 214 member federations, which is 21 more than the UN. We're a big group, and also that's 3 more than FIFA, which we also like to point out as well. So we have a large constituency that also includes more than 1 billion people who say they run every day as a regular form of exercise. So I think we have a huge influence. We have a really big role to play in this space, I think. We own a core group of 7 World Championship events, like our World Championships. We have a World Indoor Championships, World Cross Country Championships, World Road Running Championships, a World Team Race Walking Championships, and a World Relays event. Those events we own directly, but we also license or help set the rules for another almost 500 events that take place around the world. That ranges from the Diamond League events, which Steiner is involved in, which is our top tier of international track and field invitationals, the Continental Tour events, which Arttu and his event in Turku are a part of, to our label road races, which is your number more than 250. So on the sustainability side of this, in April 2020, we unveiled our sustainability strategy, which is a 10-year map with a central goal of reaching carbon neutrality across our HQ operations and across all of our World Championship events by 2030. We're also UN Sport for Climate Action signatories, so we've also committed to aim to achieve net zero by 2040. Another one of the targets in our sustainability strategy is to support all those events that I mentioned earlier on their journey toward this as well. As far as a strategy is concerned, that means that 100% of those events will commit to carbon neutrality targets by 2030. And several, I'm delighted to say, and we're joined by a few people who are central to that, are already well on their way. We've been keeping really busy the past couple of years, mainly by setting up some tools. The first is a sustainable event management system best practice guidance, which we're making available to all our event organizers. We supported that through a series of more than a dozen webinars last year around that dealt specifically with different elements of sustainable delivery. There was one about travel, one about accommodation, another about energy, for instance. And alongside that, we've set up our Athletics for a Better World standard, which we're using. It's a tiered point-based system that we're using to evaluate events and how they deliver against our sustainability strategy. It was piloted last year, again this year, and we're working to introduce it into the overall evaluation process of our events from next year. That's on the one-day beat side of things. We're also piloting the system with our LOCs of our upcoming events, World Championship events, and we're aiming to make a commitment to a gold level achievement, a core requirement for all bids starting from our 2027 World Championship. So sustainability commitments by the LOC is going to be a very important part of winning that bid. That's kept us busy. We're trying to incorporate athletes into our work as much as possible. Last November, we launched our Champions for a Better World program, which includes athletes from each of our continental area federations who have agreed to work alongside some of our global campaigns, boost their presence on social media, specifically around sustainability and environmental events. They'll be making themselves available at our World Championship events when they're not competing, of course, to help promote some of our ambitions and objectives. They'll be made available to meet organizers to work with them as well on some of these things. We've also been surveying athletes quite a bit, any chance we get, really to gauge and measure some of their thoughts and how strongly they feel about some issues, especially around the environment. We've also used those surveys to identify athletes who are interested in participating more as well. We found some really interesting findings last year. Just under 1,000 athletes participated in surveys across the World Championship events we held last year. Nearly 77% of athletes surveyed at those events say they're extremely concerned or very concerned about climate change. 72% say that climate change has already impacted our sport. And 90% have said that World Athletics does have a role to play. So that's clear. That's a very clear signal of what our athletes want us to do, what their concerns are. And what I also like about these survey findings is they're kind of talking to each other as well, saying, look, we're all concerned about this. At our meets, everyone kind of dines together and things like that. So they'll know that 7 out of 10 people sitting at the same dinner table is going to feel the same way they do about these events. That's really important, I think, to point out to athletes. So that in a nutshell is kind of what the focus is at the moment.
Nice. I mean, it's a big nutshell, Bob. There's a lot going on. There is a lot going on there to get into. I want to hear from Arttu and Steiner on their work and how some of this work from World Athletics is filtered down and how that's intersecting with their own initiatives at games level. So we'll come on to you both now. But I just want to make put a pin in circling back about, the athlete concerns and actually some of the impacts that you're already seeing for championship athletics, runners, etc., and the impacts of that climate change are already having on them, and the challenges for the future. So I want to come back to that because I think that athlete's point is a really important one. But thank you for sharing those initiatives that World Athletics are leading on. And I guess, Steiner, I'll just come to you before I go to Arttu, because you'd already started to say the background of the Oslo Bislett Games and this change from the oil and gas games to now you being very sustainable. So how has that evolved, and how is that intersected with some of the work that World Athletics are doing as well?
So we started already the fall of 2016. This was before World Athletics or meetings started their own journey. It's just the last few years we have been cooperating really close with the World Athletics, and I'm also leading now the working group within the Diamond League to get all the other Diamond League events up to a good standard. But when we started in 2016, we were like quite an early mover in Norway. We were at for sure the first big event that took this position. It does not mean that we were the first one all over, because I took a lot of ideas from international event. I looked at French Open. They were quite early actually. And a lot of concerts. So in Norway, we had a few concerts, especially one that I learned a lot from. I also stole their person that was doing all our documentation, because we very early on started with ISO certifications. So we had already the first year, we had a climate certification called ISO 14064. It goes on the greenhouse gas impact. And from 2018, we did the ISO 20111, the same one they had in London Olympics. It's an event standard. It was quite big, and a lot of job behind that one. But when we started, we actually looked at 3 pillars, and we're still working on the same 3 pillars. In order for change to be sustainable, it needs to involve 3 things. It needs to involve better for the athletes. Everything we do should be better for the athletes. The second one is it needs to be better for the climate. And the third one, it needs to be better for your wallet, better for your budget. You need to at least not lose money on it. And our experience through the last 6 years is that everything we've done, we have saved money. At the same time, we have saved the planet, you can say, or at least taken down our CO2 and everything else. And the third one is that everything we've done has also been better for the athletes. I can go into more detail if you want, maybe later.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear more about that. And I think that's, the pillars there are really important, especially, for the athletes, for the planet, and then also for your pocket as well, because, we have conversations about this a lot. Whilst this is incredibly important work, people within the industry understand that sport's a business. There's this preconception that being sustainable actually costs you. So it's great to hear firsthand from people like yourself that by doing this work, you can save money. So I'd love to delve into that a little bit more, as well as the idea of you doing some of the ISO quite early on, because a lot of people see that as a barrier, a lot of time, effort, resource, money, etc., to go through a process like that. So I'd love to delve in a little bit deeper to you having the bandwidth to be able to get into that quite early as well. So we'll come back to that. But let's hear from Arttu in terms of what's happening at the Paavo Nurmi Games and a bit of your journey.
Yeah, thank you. Our journey is actually quite similar to that of Oslo's. It was in 2017, we kind of realized that, okay, this sustainable idea of hosting events is important and we should try to work on it. So we looked for a national certification in Finland. which is called the Eco Compass, and it's primarily for the events industry. So initially it fit really well, and we still have it in use as just a management system to track certain things that we do, such as waste and all of that. So from there, we started in 2017. I think one of the things we did well initially was to just have everyone working on the meet together and have a workshop to kind of figure out, okay, what are your ideas? Like, what different ideas we have within the organization that we could pursue. And from that, one of the first initiatives we had was clean water, which is kind of a no-brainer in Finland because the tap water is of excellent quality. So from there, that was like our first big initiative to reduce the use of single-use plastic bottles, try to find ways to convince athletes and different groups that attend our meet that the tap water is drinkable. And from that, pretty much now we're at a point where we've completely minimized the use of single-use plastic bottles. I mean, we have to have a few here and there, but apart from that, it's been one of the more successful things we've done. And I think from that, the kind of guiding principle for us up until this point has been to figure out one more initiative every year. Like, okay, now we have the clean water. What can we do next? Then we moved on to waste management, thinking how we can make recycling easier at our events, have volunteers that are specifically trained to help our audience members to recycle. And like, it's sometimes a bit difficult. Like, it can feel easy to just see a waste bin and okay, you have these different holes and you have some notes that tell where everything goes, but it's not that easy. So you need someone to guide you on that. So that's pretty much how we started. What we've been doing so far every year. Actually, now this year in 2023 will be the first one where we have a official greenhouse gas calculation. So 23 will be our base year, our baseline year, and we try to be carbon neutral by 2029. So that's our big goal. But yeah, loads of different environmental initiatives, clean water, waste management, circular economy. It's kind of what Steiner alluded to, just also saving a bit of money by using less resources and also using some of the signs, for example, just try to use them for many years, not order everything new every single time.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have a very big community aspect to it. So engaging the local community through school tours, the local clubs, just across different sports, try to promote some more engagement around our event, but also on sustainable themes.
Yeah. And really interesting as well, the sort of incremental, okay, we'll focus on these things that we can do, and then going forward, let's keep focusing on another thing and building up incrementally. It's a great way for people, I think, to engage with this work without feeling overwhelmed by it. Although, if people are just coming to it, starting their efforts now, they probably need to hurry up a little bit. But from sort of 2016, 17 through to now, that's fascinating. Now, I guess, we've got to set the scene a little bit on you all and where you're coming from and this journey so far. So now it's a bit of a free-for-all conversation is what I want to lead with you all about, digging in a little bit more to these efforts, the challenges and the opportunities, the positive impact you've seen so far, how it's received internally, some big changes within inside your organisations and challenges along the way and overcoming those. And I wanted to come back to you anyway, Steiner, about the ISO. You're going quite early with the systems like that. How easy was it to just say, right, we're going to do this. This is what we're doing now. Off we pop. What was the process, the buy-in, the stakeholders that you needed to get involved? Or was it really simple and you were like, nope, this is what we're doing. Here we go.
It was a special summer of 2016, because as I told you from the beginning, I'm an economist, so I know numbers, and the numbers simply didn't add up. We lost the biggest title sponsor, I think, in the Diamond League, maybe Zurich with UBS was a similar title sponsor. 29 years of history. They bought 3,000 of the most expensive tickets. So I didn't see the numbers add up. It was impossible to take the ExxonMobil title sponsorship and sell it to somebody else dollar for dollar. So that said, and when this opportunity then to take the different course, we needed a lot of companies that could help us in this journey. And we decided very early on that we were not going to sell the title sponsorship. We changed it to Oslo Bislett Games. Luckily, we had some security fund because Bislett, they had some money on the side. So I managed to talk our board into this grand idea. I used a couple of months to build the whole structure, almost like it's kind of like a McKinsey job. When you take a company that has basically run out of steam and you want to change everything, you have to make a really big plan, and it needs to be fundamentally, connected into your owners and the grassroots, and it needs to be looking from top down and bottom up at the same time. So we decided on three goals. Bislett Games, which is our event, was going to be the world's most sustainable international track and field event. Then, to offset those 3,000 tickets and all these oil seminars, we also decided that we were going to have a seminar or a conference that were supposed to be the leading conference that connected companies and sports and sustainability. So the companies could come to a conference, they could talk about everything they've done within sustainability. We connect that up to the Bislett Games, which is the most sustainable event in the world. And then the third pillar were the stadium. We are one of the few meetings that also run the stadium. So we wanted to make the historic Bislett Stadium with 100 years history into being an eco lighthouse in the city of Oslo. So we had to connect within the municipality. And then the first one, why we contacted ISO was that because this was such a big, grand idea. So for me to go out to companies and try to sell this, I needed somebody to control that what I said was being looked after in detail. Because when you sit in a company and you have the history from 29 years with an oil company, it could be just me talking. How would somebody check that what I said was actually correct? Because we wanted to start to clean up in our own garden. We wanted to be, to already the first year, take down our greenhouse gas emission a lot. So we decided that we were going to be a zero emission event already the first year. That means from the athletes arrived at the Gardermoen airport to when they took the train going to Stockholm, everything, all the travel was going to be zero. And this was possible because we have airport train in Oslo. We changed the hotel to be at the central station. So all athletes took the airport train down to the central station. Much better for the athletes, better for the climate, better for our budget. So, and another sponsor, of course, were the airport train. Then in the days prior to the meet, the athletes need to go to training. They need to go to different locations, press conference, etc. So we needed an electric car company. We contacted Tesla, but they didn't want to sponsor anything. But then Hyundai, they just came out with the first Hyundai Ioniq, which looked like a car, 4 doors. It was one of the first cars, except for Tesla, that was actually selling cars, electric cars in 2017. So this became one of our sponsors. Then we contacted the Oslo municipality. They had a tram just standing outside the central station that would take all the athletes to Bislett Stadium. Right through the city, faster, better, convenient. And then the day after the meet, it's an express train going to Stockholm. So from the same station that the athletes could then go to the next Diamond League meeting. And all this meant that we cut the greenhouse gas emission according to ISO 14064 with 36% already from 16 to 17. So this is something our friends from Paavo Nurmi now, they will have their point looking at 22 to 23. We looked at 16 to 17. And when you cut your greenhouse gas emissions with 36%, it also ended up that our travel budget was cut by 30%. So we saved 30% of our travel budget, and we got a couple of new, very interesting, good sponsors. And then we also looked into the stadium. What could we do in the stadium? From year one, we introduced recycling, and we worked really hard with the municipality to put out solar panels on the roof of the stadium. But this was some application. So we needed to have a year to check everything and to go through the numbers, because it's nothing, that money you don't get right away. But already the year after, in July 2018, we were the first stadium that put solar panels on the roof. And a little cool thing about that is that when we did that in 2018, it was based on the electricity prices the last 5 years, and it looked like it's going to be a down payment of between 12 to 15 years. And then we all know what happened last year with the war and everything, and the prices on electricity, they went through the roof. So in one way, I'm happy to say that the solar panels will be paid down sometime between August and October this year. So the municipality is super happy. We cut down the down payment in half.
Yeah, wow.
And of course, it's because of what happened in Europe with the high electricity prices. But also when it comes to recycling, because we run the stadium, mixed waste, to throw mixed waste is more and more expensive. So we've been actually this year taking a second step on the recycling to build out even more fractions. And we invested more than $50,000 in the stadium now to have the back end system, not only in the public areas where you have different fractions with plastic and bottles and everything, but we also upgraded the back side of it to get down the prices on handling mixed waste, because it's getting more and more expensive. So hopefully this will also have a big impact on the money side. And the third part with the conference, it's now up and running. The first 3 years, it was called the Bislett Games Sustainable Conference, but we got the biggest Norwegian insurance company, Storebrand, is one of the biggest companies in the Nordic, to take over that one, because we were not designed to have a big conference in sustainability with 600 to 1,000 people. We used way too much time and effort, while we should actually use that time and effort to organize a sport event. So after a couple of years having this insurance company as the main sponsor of the conference, they took it over. So it's now the Storebrand Bislett Conference. And last year, this was the second time last year. The first time was in 2019. Then there was a couple of years because of the COVID where it didn't happen. But last year, again, they were up and running with 1,000 people in the conference, and Al Gore as one of the speakers. And they have a totally different budget. So this conference now is living with their name and our name. And it's very important, because when you have a conference like that, which is really high level, the same people that goes to this conference on the day of the meeting, they come up to our hospitality tent. We have a big hospitality tent with 1,500 people. They take 2/3 of the tickets. And then they buy the most expensive tickets in the stadium after that. So they bring their clients to the conference, to the VIP tent, and then to the stadium. And suddenly we sold between 1,000 and 1,500 of the most expensive ticket. And it's building our brand name.
Incredible work over the past, obviously, 6 or 7 years around that. And I just want to draw a few things out of this in terms of what we hear more broadly from people. So first of all, through the decision was made for you, but a lot of sports organisations globally are in a situation where they are sponsored by large organisations that perhaps no longer fit their ethos in terms of sustainability. So whilst that was a little different for you with Exxon, I think there's incredible learnings there of, as you said, your background being an economist enabled you to see that as an opportunity, not a challenge. I think a lot of people who are thinking about who their sponsors are in sport right now just see it as a massive challenge and a gaping hole in their revenue stream if they were to lose a large carbon emitting sponsor. But the fact that you saw that as an opportunity and then reset the way the event worked and the different opportunities, I think there's great learnings in there for people. I also think, as you said, the idea of it not being an expense, but also a revenue stream is a very important one to bring through as well, in terms of the way that's reset, that you're not losing out. And also the idea as well that you set a vision and then work towards it. Again, a lot of organisations we chat to, and some people listening might feel as though it's them potentially. They chat to us about making commitments like the UN Sports for Climate Action Framework or a net zero commitment. And they're worried that they don't know how they're going to get there. So they don't want to commit to it until they know exactly how it's going to get there. And we understand that, but we also know how important it is to make those commitments, even before you've perhaps extrapolated every single facet of how that's going to happen. As you said, you made that commitment, you decided you were going to be the most sustainable, and then through innovation and through partnerships and through thinking bigger picture, you were able to, even in just 1 year, reduce your travel by that much. So I think there's an incredible amount of learning. There's more. Here we go.
I often get, after we did this, we had 17, 18, 19, which was 3 big years where we did a lot. We did basically everything.
Yeah.
But remember, as Bob said from the beginning, we are the Diamond League meeting and we are quite strong. So we have the resources, which not many other high-level meetings are. So the Diamond League is like the Premier League in football, the very high level sports events.
Yeah.
So we have the resources. We already run the stadium. We have 6 people full-time employed. So this is one thing which is important.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is that to be able to do something like that, you need some people in your organization that has the energy, that can run things through, like an engine, and then the second thing you need is that you need to be smart when you go out publicly, because people want to take you. So we are, like I said, a very, very high profile event in Norway. It's like the London Marathon would be in London. And I was afraid that when we started this, that we will get some critical voices from the media, like, oh, what are you doing now? Suddenly you, Steiner, are being this, going to save the world, etc. So we made a plan how we're going to do it publicly. So one of the first things we did was that we started working with an organization called Zero. It's Zero Emission Resource Organization. It's a Norwegian environmental impact group. And why we picked that one is that very many environmental groups are looked at as, they are protesting in the streets, they are chaining themselves outside a chemical factory. This is not this kind of organization. The organization we are working with is the one that is looking at how you can solve problems with technology. So I often said that what we're experiencing now is also the 4th industrial revolution. And I'm saying again and again that if the world didn't get warmer, it will still happen, but slower. So, and why? It's because when you build massively solar panels, wind turbines, electric cars on scale, it's like a computer, because it will be more and more efficient, and it will be cheaper and cheaper. And now the evidence is there. The cheapest energy now, it comes from on-land wind. And then after that is solar. And then after a while is offshore wind. And it's much more cheap now to build this. Same with an electric car. When you make one car, it's expensive. But when you make 1 million cars or 2 million cars, it's going to outcompete a fossil fuel car. So having this as a base, that's why we work with this organization. And when the media contacted us and looked into what we were doing, they asked me, so how are you going to do this, Steiner? And then I said, I'm working with this organization. They will help us. And then they asked me again, and I got this person from this environmental organization to tell the Norwegian media how Bislett was going to do it. And then they referred to me back, and so what are you going to do, Steiner? I said, I'm going to do the sports part of it. I'm going to organize a sporting event. And that meant the first few weeks in the national media, it was impossible to take us. It was impossible to make this a negative article, because we had this person that was quite known. He's been in many TV debates, Q&As, and he's very respected. He knows what he's saying. And you can't take that person on this knowledge. So when he was working with us, he actually helped us with this. You can call it quality, or it was no bullshit.
Yeah.
Bislett is actually working with the best guys, and we're going to do this in that way.
And I think that's really important for people to take away as well, that you don't necessarily have to have all the expertise internally. If you could, if you've got the resources and the buy-in, and you can get those external resources, that can solidify your position. So Bob, Arttu, thoughts and insights from you both as well in terms of some of the themes that are coming through here that Steiner's brought up. Any thoughts for you to chip in? Yeah, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, just picking up on some of the things Steiner brought up. I think internally for me and my role, one of the biggest challenges is to apply this to all our competitions. Like Steiner mentioned, they've been doing this for a while now. Arttu's been doing this for a while in his events. We have a few others like that. The problem is we have such a wide array of events that we're trying to come along on this journey. It's difficult. Yes, Steiner, they own the stadium, for instance. I was at Arttu's event last year. The mayor of Turku had requested to meet with us at a breakfast meeting. It was important. There was a very important buy-in at the municipal level for this as well. That's not something we have across the various geographies that we're working in. So that's a challenge, certainly. I'm glad Steiner also brought up bringing in these external experts. We work with consultants ourselves on a daily basis. Of course, that's why they're there. They're there to help us. Our job is to put on events. Their job is to help us deliver those events in as sustainable fashion as we can. So that's really important. So I think a lot of where those resources are lacking in this, that's a problem all sport organizations have. As soon as we start talking about, building sustainability in events, one of the first things isn't even financial resources. It's a human resource. It's adding to another person's job, right? So, putting on a sustainable event isn't only up to Bob, who's our head of sustainability. It's the job of everybody in every functional area to make sure this happens. So that's been a really key learning for us. Arttu, go on.
Yeah, I actually like to add to what Steiner mentioned and what Bob also referred to a little bit about having someone as an engine in your organization to push the sustainability goals forward. Especially with organizations with lower resources, you have to convince people to put some more effort into something they're very used to doing. So a lot of athletics events, track and field events, have a very long legacy and history behind them. So there's a lot of people who've been doing the same thing for 30 or 40 years. They're very good at what they do. And now you have to convince them to do it a bit differently and convince them to take that extra step. So then in the next few years, that'll be second nature to them as well. So it's important as an organization to realize that it's not just about having a sustainability lead or a Bob in your organization to make all of these plans. You have to convince and have the people commit to these goals as well, because I'm not going to be everywhere at our event. I have things I need to do. I cannot be at every place. Similar to Steiner or Bob, it's impossible. So you have to kind of plant the seed in people in different sectors that, okay, sustainability is important. And it's been a fun journey seeing from 2017 to this day, where at first it was like, well, why do we have to do this? It's so much effort. Like, what's the point? Kind of. And also an argument that I see a lot is that, well, sports events aren't sustainable. Why are we doing them at all? And to me, that's not a very convincing counter argument. So it's better to find ways to make the events themselves more sustainable. So coming from that path to now being at a point where everyone in the organization is actively trying to figure out new ways to put more sustainability initiatives and more work towards more sustainable event management. It's a rewarding track to kind of have gone through.
And that, I think the behavior change, Steiner, I'll come to you next with your insight. I just want to highlight that behavior change both internally and externally. So inside organizations, the behavioral change that's needed, but also what I want to try and come on to quickly as well before the end of our time is the athletes and behavior change and the influence, both how athletes are being impacted and can impact the narrative around this. So I'll come back to that. But Steiner, you want to just follow up Arttu's point then?
Yeah, just a couple of learnings we had. As I told you, we were already in 2018. We were the first big event in Norway. I'm talking event in Norway. So the certification company, they did us as a try for the ISO 2012-1. And we did that for 3 years. But it was actually too big for us. Our organization, like told you, 6 employees full time. It was not the certification we decided to continue with. So now we do the ISO 14064, which is the greenhouse gas certification, and we do the Eco Lighthouse certification, which is the Oslo municipality certification, and we are now starting to roll into the World Athletics certification program, which is more defined for a sporting event. So that's some learnings, because it's quite, I mean, the ISO 2012-1 is good for a big federation, but for a little bit smaller event, it's a lot of job. So that was the first thing. The second thing is that we have decided also from 2017 that we will not do any partnership with any company that does not have a sustainable program. So that means no fossil fuel companies, no coal companies, no gas companies. And to do that in Norway, which is an oil country, that was quite dramatic. But we know that we said that to all our partners, that we are in this full-heartedly. And now when you look at our partners today, we meet 3-4 times a year. We call it the green team, where we meet the different people in the different companies. So a business to business meetup, where companies also learn things from each other. And they quite a lot of the companies are quite big, so they can also actually become customers of each other. So, and this is not where we sit there and talk about who's coming to Bislett for the event. It's actually much more deep down to the technology, carbon capture, recycling, how, you know, everything that are cutting edge. And this is quite important, because all our partners now, they are in the green team. They are really leaders in Norway on this side.
Nice. I love that point about the one size doesn't fit all. I think for us, when we're chatting about standards and certification, it's not that everyone has to go for one in particular. It's more the idea that a credible external organisation is checking your work. And the partnership side, yeah, absolutely. Especially if you have got limited resources, because if you work with the right partners, they can actually take a lot of the legwork out of reaching a lot of these goals. If you choose them and you go through the best possible procurement and due diligence processes to get them, they can do a lot of the work for you. I'm conscious of time. We haven't got loads left. I did want to just get a quick any insights you've got around the athletes, because I think that's an important part of this. Bob, you mentioned the stats there of how many athletes really are worried about climate change and the impact. And Steiner, you mentioned how you've made things through the change of transport easier, and you know, one of your pillars is making everything easier for athletes. But I guess any insights from you all on the athletes are the talent, they're the face, they've got the microphone for this stuff. Any thoughts from you all about the opportunities there or the way you're engaging with them? It would be great with just a short intervention from all of you before we finish up with hopes for the future to keep on time.
I can, because when we did this in 2017, we tried to get some of the Norwegian athletes on board, but of course they were a little bit hesitant, and I'll come back to why. But what we did in Norway was we did surveys also. So from the athletes that, you know, many of them drove their first time ever in an electric car. They saw the transport system. This was better for the athletes. It was quicker, more convenient. So all this was positive. When it comes to the athletes and the way they act, I've been an athlete myself. And when you're an athlete, you are into your little tunnel vision. You are surrounded by yes people, your coach, your physio, your mother and father, they all look up to. And it's very difficult for an athlete to kind of take this responsibility. I know many athletes do, but I don't think we should expect that from all athletes, because your time as an athlete is quite short. And when you have a sponsor, for instance, coming up to you, let's say a car company, and they want to sponsor you, it's good money. Should you say no because that car is fueled on diesel? You should probably, but are you doing it? Probably not. And can we understand that? Maybe yes, because you have a very short time frame in your career. So it's very often is when you stop doing your sport, then you start looking a little bit outside the tunnel. So we have slowly gotten some athletes in Norway that actually speak up for sustainability, but this is just the last few years. So athletes themselves has been very reluctant. They don't talk about doping, they don't talk about sustainability, they don't take a position on politics. Maybe now they start, but I don't think we should put that burden on them. They're young, many of them. So it's more, or I think this is more on the organizational parts. People like me, people like Bob, like other meetings that should do this, and then try to get the athletes in, but maybe not expect it.
No, I agree. It certainly shouldn't be an expectation. everyone has different interests, different passions. But I certainly would like to be there to provide some support. We hear more and more from athletes who are seeing the impacts of climate change specifically impacting their lives directly. You see it in training. There were recent studies in Kenya how the whole training cycle is changing for athletes. They have to get up earlier in the morning for their morning run because it's already hot earlier in the day. They're not getting the proper sleep in the afternoon because it's too hot to sleep in the afternoon. They have to then extend their afternoon training run to later in the day, again, because of heat and drought conditions. So that's impacting entirely. That'll obviously it'll impact their performance as well. So they're seeing that. They're seeing how our events are being forced to change programs. At some of our largest events, we've had to adjust timetables, because of weather conditions. We saw it in Tokyo, how hot things were. We saw it at the U.S. Olympic trials a few years ago, how entire sessions were canceled for the first time. It was unprecedented because of the heat in late June of all times in Oregon, which is typically not a hot period. So we are being, and I'm really glad to see, we are being approached by athletes who want to figure out ways how they can best use their voices. We've set up some workshops to help, I guess, build their confidence and how to deliver messages, not only about environment, but anything that they're really passionate or interested about. So it's always good to see. And they're concerned about maybe some blowback, especially on social media. But I have to say, I was very pleasantly surprised that in any campaigns we've done around this so far on social media, there's been very little of that blowback, really. Athletes haven't seen that much of that. So I think that's changing. And I think, at least I'd like to think, that some of on the media side of things, it's changing as well. It used to be, to use the basketball analogy, the disgruntled fan would say, shut up and dribble, right? That's not so much the case anymore. I'd like to think that's not the case anymore. So I guess transparency really is key here, to be honest about what you're trying to do, not to make promises you can't keep, and take it from there and build on that.
Nice. Arttu, any final thoughts for you on that one?
Yeah, I think in terms of athletes and the way they can voice their concerns or what's expected or not expected of them, I think the best we can do as meet organizers or people in the business is to kind of offer our events as a platform. So whether it be press conferences or anything surrounding that in the media space, it's like we're so used to asking the athletes about their performance, what their plans are for the next month or two in terms of just competing. Maybe we can think about that a bit differently. I mean, obviously, like the press conference the day before the meet will revolve around athletic performance, and we also need to let the athletes have the sort of space to focus on what's most important to them at that point. But I think a more general view of what we do is to kind of open up the ways we discuss things. So we're so used to having this idea that politics is not a part of sport, or sport is somehow detached from everything. I mean, sports is not detached from the environment or society or the local communities we live in. So it's just natural that athletes can have a platform to voice their concerns, and they can do it. They don't have to, but if they feel strongly about something, I think that's something we can encourage. And I think Bob mentioned the workshops, and things like that. We can help them in figuring out ways to communicate things that are important to them.
Absolutely. And I think that's a crucial element, isn't it? That if athletes are interested or passionate in this area, that there is the infrastructure through either from a federation level or from events level, that there's things to talk about, there's things to reference, there's support there for them to be able to highlight some of these efforts around their own passions as well. I feel like I could talk to you all day, but we do have to finish up. So I guess just to finish, I'd love to hear from you all just in a short sentence, your kind of hope for the future when it comes to how big sustainability is in regard to sport and where it's going in, say, the next 5 or 10 years? Bob, I'll come to you first.
Well, I think the biggest challenge for us as an organization that puts on global events is around travel.
Yeah.
You see athletes already voicing their concerns and displeasure about that. And I think it's a really good opportunity for us to collaborate with other international federations, maybe through like the Sport for Climate Action Framework, for instance, to really advocate and push the aviation industry towards a more sustainable product, whether it's just sustainable aviation fuels, whether it's through improving the battery power of planes, because we are heading in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
We're just not heading there quickly enough. So I think I would love to see that kind of collaboration with other international federations.
Thank you. Arttu, what about you?
Pretty much along the same lines as Bob. So I think I'm hoping to see a bit more development for our travel and calendar planning, most of all. But I think, in general, in the next 5 to 10 years, I'd like to see for my organization and the sport in general to just have a more like a better focus on sustainability initiatives and partnerships and stakeholder activation, kind of make that one of the central themes around which we organize our events.
Thank you. Steiner, final word.
Yeah, I see it from two sides. It's what can we do for the athletes? And it's been mentioned here 2 times. It's calendar planning. I remember when I was an athlete, you go to Tokyo, then back to Europe, then to America, then down to Africa. So we can bullet point and times for the events in Asia to be at the same time. This is better for the climate, better for the athletes, less travel, and better for the budget. Then in Europe, then the whole circuit comes to Europe. You have meetings that are close by each other. And then, so calendar planning, very important to get down our greenhouse emissions. And the athletes will have less time on the plane, more time to rest and prepare. And then the third part is to use the athletes because they have the spotlight on them. Mm-hmm. So I hope within the next 3 years, when the first electric short distance planes are coming, to have some athletes going on an electric plane from Oslo to Stockholm, for instance. And this is going to happen. And then the athletes will have the spotlight on them and make it safe so other people actually will start doing it at the same time. This was what happened when we had athletes driving electric cars in 2017. It was like, oh shit, they are doing it. Then people started to buy those electric cars. And now in Norway, 90% of the new car sales are electric cars. So 2 sides, what the athletes can do for us and what we can do for the athletes.
Nice. Thank you all very much. I think it's been such a rich and interesting conversation with you all from so many different angles, from the athletes to sponsorship to putting on events to governance to calendar planning to across the board. It's been an incredibly, as I said, rich conversation. So thank you all so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to chat to you on the podcast. Just for everyone who's listening, as a reminder, that was Bob Ramsak from World Athletics, Steinar Hoen from the Oslo Bislett Games, and Arttu Salonen from the Paavo Nurmi Games in Turku. So thank you all so much, and we'll leave it just there. Thanks for listening to the Climate of Sport podcast. Please like and subscribe and get in touch if you want to share information about the work that you're doing, if you want to appear as a guest or you want to recommend guests, or you just have ideas of conversations you'd like us to have. You can get in touch by emailing info@sportpositivesummit.com.